Hey, beautiful people, Ryan Hamer here. Hope you're doing wonderfully today. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about what else? Relationships. But specifically, I'm going to be talking to you about pain and relationship or emotional trauma and how 5 ways that it can affect you. Maybe not in the present, but in the future, going on down the road. And are you aware of the fact that animals, if they've been pre-exposed to a certain condition or situation, they learn to adapt to that condition, and that sort of fear factor or that adaptation gets passed on from generation to generation. So if I was to tell you that maybe fish, they never were in water, if fish actually started out on land and then they ended up in water, so fish no longer needed feet, so they ended up swimming, and then they evolved to be able to breathe underwater. And it's something that adapted over time based on their conditioning or what have you. If you apply the same methodology to other animals, such as, I don't know, let's just say wolves. Say wolves used to get along with humans, and then the humans screwed them over. Now wolves will have a predisposition to a hatred towards humans, or a distrust of humans, or they'll stay away from them or what have you. Where am I going with all this? In your relationships, you can experience trauma. You can have some emotional trauma, some horrible thing that happened in your past relationship. You can have something that, it could be as simple as a breakup. Whatever you went through, you're not over it. You're not just brushing it off. And that's the thing. A lot of times we think that we've gotten over that pain and we've brushed it off and we've moved on. It's not uncommon for you to pass it on. And that pain, that trauma, whatever it is that you've experienced or endured, that is embedded into your psyche. It's in your subconscious. It stays there and it resurfaces and manifests through different ways going forward. A lot of us don't realize that. And what happens is, whether it's your ex-wife, your ex-husband, your ex-girlfriend, whatever happened, we like to say, whatever happens stays in the past. Whatever happens, Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, if Vegas was your past, Vegas gets crossed with that stalker X, and they just keep coming. It'll keep rearing its head, essentially. You're not over it. We like to say that you're over it, by jumping into another relationship, but that's not the case. And I guess the best way I can sort of put this out there for you is, I'll give you the different ways that I think that people carry it forward. So you transfer it. You transfer it into your being, you transfer it into your relationships going forward, you transfer it into your existing relationships, and you've never really sort of expunged it from your system. Sadly, a lot of people transfer their trauma onto their kids. And you'll hear some women that their mother will have never said anything good about a man. And sometimes you hear some men, some fathers will never teach their sons anything good about a woman. They will never teach their son to expect anything good to come from a woman, because they're still bitter, because they're still hurting, because they're still in pain, because maybe their son's mother left them, or ran off with another guy, or their last relationship ended. So there is a trigger point. There is a tipping point where they just they don't keep it to themselves anymore. They end up pouring into their children, and you have to spread light into your children, not darkness, not pain. Not saying that you can't teach them about pain. Not saying that you can't give them the experiences of pain, or let them know that, hey, this is what can happen, this is what may happen, but this is not the end all or be all, right? You can't do that. Also, your trauma comes out in your mood. I think this one's obvious. Some people exude a mood of pain. They exude a mood of misery. They exude a mood of just, I'm not over it yet. She still hurt me. He still hurt me. He's still at me. And I don't trust anyone. And that's kind of the mood you exude before you even open your mouth. There's attitude. What kind of attitude, what kind of aura are you putting out there? Do you give everyone the attitude of, I just broke up yesterday? Meanwhile, it's been 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later. And you're still that person who never got over that trauma. Also, sexually. I mean, there's an interesting one, right? Let's talk about sex. Perception, performance, and insecurity. So what is your perception of sex? You know, some people have the wrong perception of sex. Some people use it as a form of therapy. It's their coping mechanism. It's their, I don't want to feel lonely, so I'm going to maybe give somebody else my company to remove that feeling. And it will be temporary, because it's a temporary escape from the loneliness that you're truly feeling. A temporary escape from the bitterness and anger that you're feeling that you haven't resolved. Performance. There are people pleasers, right? So we have people pleasers, and we've got people teasers, and we got people takers, right? So someone wants to take your joy. Someone wants to please the other person. And someone just wants to tease the other person because that's what they went through. They still feel that, you know what? It's not going to go my last relationship never went anywhere. We never really grew together. We grew apart and then grew bitter, and I got dumped, or I dumped him or her, and I'm still angry. And any new relationship that they get into, I believe that they're playing the same game that I'm playing, or they're going to be a victim of my game because I'm not going to be played anymore. You see the cycle? This trauma causes the wheel to continue rotating, and it rotates into other people's lives. It rotates into your present, your future, and it's all based on your past. And that's what I'm trying to show you. You also have takers, and someone will just take somebody else's boyfriend, take somebody else's girlfriend, because their last love was taken. And you know, the whole thing is, if you weren't someone's to begin with, then you can't be taken. If you were truly somebody else's to begin with, you could not have been taken. But again, people don't see it that way, right? In your relationships, you have to think about it like this. If you look at breaking an arm, if you break an arm, you break a limb, you break any bone or appendage of your body. If I was playing, let's just say I was playing basketball, and I jumped up and I landed badly on my leg and I broke my leg. The best way to heal my leg, of course, is to go on the basketball court the next day and start playing, right? Of course not. You have to do rehab. You got to reset the leg, and you got to reset the leg and then let it heal and cast it up and all that, whatever stuff you got to do with it. There's a process, right? You're not going to be searching for a basketball again anytime soon, I should hope. And anytime you injure yourself like that, pretty much you take the necessary precautions to heal properly. But when it comes to breakups, when it comes to trauma, when it comes to getting dumped, when it comes to getting hurt, what do? We put on some Sade, and we're in our room for a bit, writing for a bit, crying, of course, lots of tears, and We're just in a lot of pain, a lot of trauma. And with pain comes blame. So we got to be blaming somebody. Blame the other person. Blame friends, family. And then we blame ourselves. And so these are some of the natural things that you go through. However, and then you're eventually able to, get past it and move forward once you've adequately dealt with the situation. But there are some people that will run back onto the court. They'll run back onto the field, and they run headlong into the next play. They go to play. And when you go to play, you're playing while you're still healing. You're playing while you're broken. Some part of you is broken or injured or bruised or hurt. It's your heart. And what happens too is you end up messing up the rotation and hurting someone else. So my whole point here is that if you don't heal your trauma, if you don't work with your trauma, if you don't acknowledge, admit, confess that you've got trauma that you haven't dealt with, you're going to cause drama for someone else. And a lot of times what happens is you get into your other relationship and you're still bitter. Sometimes the relationship will have ended, and when the relationship ends, you're still wondering what the hell happened or why did that happen? And your inability to recognize either fault in yourself or the other person and how things could have changed or what you could have done differently. Sometimes it's not your fault at all. Sometimes it's not the other person's fault either. Sometimes it's just doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, you drift apart. Sometimes you got to drift apart. Sometimes you got to separate to come back to be stronger. But not every relationship works that way. You break up and it's done. But you have to work on yourself and be a better person, a stronger person, so that you can be a supportive person for someone else. Right? So you got to be better and you got to be stronger, and you have to work on yourself. And it comes with admitting that there was a problem. Comes with admitting and acknowledging and recognizing, hey, you know what? Perhaps I could have done this differently. Perhaps I could have said things differently. Perhaps I could have looked at him or her differently. I mean, this video is in no way a universal cure-all for all the varying situations that could occur in a relationship that could cause trauma. But I'm just trying to get you all to open up your eyes to the fact that when you do experience trauma, if you don't acknowledge it and if you don't confront it and deal with it at the time, it's just going to give you problems later on. And as I said, comes with, just to go over the 5 things I said, you're going to have sexual issues. You're going to have people issues. Your inability to be satisfied with just being present in that moment will cause you to do the people pleasing, the people taking, people teasing, and your moods will be all out of whack. And your kids are going to see this, and your kids are going to absorb, and they're going to suck, and they're going to take, and they're going to just feed off of your energy. You're just trying to transfer. You're just going to transfer it. So hopefully this video has had some meaning to some of you, and hopefully you found some value. Please feel free to like, share, comment as usual. Have a good one.